I'm very happy to welcome Sean McCartney, and not related to Paul McCartney, I guess, and join me in welcoming Sean.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs. It's an honor to be here. I can't tell you, the last 2 days have been incredibly inspiring for me. I'm coming here from Washington, D.C., where things don't really move too quickly. To be here amongst all you mayors where I think I've heard it said already, the rubber really meets the road. The work that you're doing day in and day out to make sure that your communities are safe, trash is being picked up, the planning that you're doing, both short-term and also long-term, which I think is incredibly important, addressing things as sustainable development and climate change and how to address these issues. To me, the long-term planning, not just for your children, but for your grandchildren, to me has just been incredibly inspiring. So I'm going to take that hope back to DC and hopefully make something good come out of it. So I'm here today, again, 10 years the Develop program has been collaborating with the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. We highly value this collaboration. Thank you, Dave, for all the work that you've done to continue this. And so Dave presented this project. He wanted to know where exactly Phragmites is growing in the Great Lakes Basin, including the St. Lawrence River Valley. So what we do at Develop is we use NASA Earth observations, another code name for satellites. And there's roughly 17 of them we do to monitor long-term observations on the planet. This could be the atmosphere, this could be the biosphere, our oceans, health and air quality. We monitor natural disasters as they occur. And so Dave and this great initiative wanted to know, because Phragmites is impacting on such a large scale throughout the basin, if we could come up with some methodology to use this data and create the science to be able to identify the areas that are most at risk for this. So the Develop program, as Dave mentioned, is really a tool. It's an applied science. What we try to do is use this science based on the data that we're getting, this amazing data, into the hands of policymakers, the people in this room, so that you're better informed to make better decisions about your communities. The objectives of this project were to see if it was feasible to use different Earth observations, identify what ones were most appropriate for the project, and then model a risk map, a current risk map, 2016, and then model land change based on driver variables from the mid-'80s up until present. And based on land change throughout the Great Lakes Basin, if we can forecast a risk map for Phragmites australis, in the year 2020. So a quick background on Phragmites. This is just an introduction. We're going to have an amazing panel coming up once I'm done. They're going to be able to inform you much more about this, but just a brief background. Phragmites australis, subspecies australis, is also known as the common reed. It's worldwide. It's on every continent except Antarctica. It's native to Eurasia. Economic and ecological value impact on the Great Lakes has been $5 billion to this point, which is a huge chunk of change for your communities. It's a perennial wetland grass. It actually survives in both freshwater and brackish water, and it also impacts biodiversity. The study area that we looked at for our project was a 10-kilometer buffer around the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River Basin, spanned both sides, Canadian and U.S. border. This encompasses roughly 20% of the world's freshwater and 90% of U.S. freshwater. I come from the state of California. Water is a big issue. So knowing that there's this much water locked up in these lakes is pretty encouraging for me. And 34 million people, roughly, that depend on these resources for their livelihoods. We looked at a study period from 1985 to present. What we're trying to do is look at land change based on 1985 to present and see where that land was changing the most and identify those as driver variables on change and how those are impacting where Phragmites might be occurring. And again, forecasting that to the year 2020. Some of the community concerns, maybe it's in your community, maybe it's not, but I know it's definitely impacting some of your communities and your constituencies. Is the high cost of management. Once it's established, and it's very aggressive, it's very opportunistic species, it forms monotypic stands, meaning once it establishes itself, it outcompetes other native grasses and vegetation. It lowers biodiversity in your communities, and it's extremely hard to eradicate. And I'm not going to go into the eradication, but we'll be hearing more about that later. from the amazing panel that's been lined up for you. So some of the partners, everybody in this room, Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, and also the Michigan Tech Research Institute based in Michigan. All the slide is showing are the observation points, because to be able to model where Phragmites is, you have to have known presence locations of where it has been. It's very important to be able to model its distribution. So this map is basically showing the 4 different data portals. Some of them were citizen scientists, people in your communities that are going out with GPS units with their phones or GPS units and actually recording known presence locations in the communities where you're living. And others are from research institutions that we were able to get data. All of this data is freely accessible, and you are able to get it through these different agencies. So we had roughly 1,200 known presence locations, and we also, based on our literature review from some of the people that might be in this room, we created 8 different driver variables. These driver variables were explanatory variables, basically showing the likelihood of Phragmites occurring, and these were the ones that we were able to identify. And we were able to identify them, again, using these Earth observations that we like to highlight in the Develop program, which I'm part of. We're really trying to showcase how we can use these Earth observations to better the environmental concerns which you have. Some of them were based on precipitation, some of them were based on temperature, some of them were based on elevation and slope, and we were able to derive other environmental variables based on those. We also derived bioclimatic variables. These are a combination of both temperature and precipitation, and when used together, you're able to derive much more value on the known presence of Phragmites. We're able to identify that the dry seasons are getting warmer, dry seasons being the dry season in January through March. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but it basically just mentions the different methodology that we used about acquiring data, processing it, and then modeling both land change and also the risk for Phragmites in your communities. So Maxent was the modeling software that we used for modeling Maxent in 2010. These were based on our iterative modeling, we were able to come up with these 5 most explanatory variables, and this is the contribution to the model, and these are just some of the statistics that were showing how well the model was performing. What you see, the map on the right is a probability of 0 to 1 on where Phragmites is located throughout the basin. The next step in the project was to model land change. So based on land change going back to 1985, and the Canada Natural Resources Department, and also on our side of the border in the United States, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, we were able to create, to derive these land cover maps, and then based on current rates of change. That's an important point to make. So based on the trends of change from 1985 to 2010, we then forecast to the year 2020, based on those rates of change, what the land cover would be in that year, 2020. Some of the results that we got were we're noticing that agriculture was the biggest threat to agriculture is currently development, and it's not urban development, but it's more suburban development and open space management. And then this is what we were able to, at least for the US side, I'm sorry, the Canadian side's not on here, but we did predict this as well. We modeled land change to the year 2020, and we were able to derive new environmental variables because the literature has shown that Phragmites is, as we heard speakers yesterday talking about agriculture and the agricultural impacts that we're having into our waterways with phosphorus and nitrates, phosphates, and whatnot. The proximity to agriculture is a good proxy variable for these fertilizers getting into the waterways and also causing for the contribution of Phragmites growth and expansion. So this is a comparison. What we're looking at here, this is in Green Bay, Wisconsin. This is on the left, you're seeing Phragmites modeled in the year 2010. This is a risk map again. So this is the probability of Phragmites in these areas. So on the left, you can see a risk map for the year 2010, and on the right, a risk map for the year 2020. You can see that we're definitely seeing an increase in the probability of Phragmites spreading. These are just a couple different, there's a handful of different snapshots of different cities and municipalities that we're choosing to highlight. Here we have Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We've got Gary, Indiana. Areas in red are higher probability. Areas in blue, lower probability. Collingwood, Ontario. I'm not as familiar with some of these areas, so maybe you can identify the parts in red and what they may be. Mississauga, Ontario, you can see that very high risk for Phragmites in Mississauga. St. Catharines, Ontario, also you can see quite a high risk for Phragmites in these areas as well. So a couple takeaways. What we'd like to do for future work, I think I would like to mention as well that this project was carried out in under 2.5 months. It was a rapid feasibility project. All the projects that we work on and develop, it could be natural disasters or looking at oceans, or it could be looking at agriculture or ecological forecasting. These are all rapid feasibility projects, so we can get the information to you in the quickest way possible. Thank you. So what we have is, so what we'd like to do is increase the Phragmites data points. We'd also like to normalize the spatial resolution, fine-tune our models with more information. And some of the takeaways that I think are most important for you are Phragmites risk areas we do model to be growing and expanding. So this is obviously a concern for you, for your waterfront properties and your communities, for biodiversity loss and everything else. Phragmites is closest to agriculture and development and also to roads. So as development is expanding into these areas, you're going to be seeing, especially in these disturbed areas along roadways and suburban development, you're going to see growth of Phragmites here. Maybe something to take in mind as you're planning new subdivisions and the like. The trends are, you know, wherever humans interact with nature, we're seeing, not everywhere, but in areas along the Great Lakes, we are seeing it's leading to the spread of Phragmites. And also, as the climate is warming, we're seeing a trend toward increasing Phragmites growth. I would like to acknowledge Laura Brethheim and Laura Bourgeois-Chavez at the Michigan Tech Research Institute and Dr. Kurt Kowalski, both instrumental to advising this project, and also to our wonderful partners, everybody in this room, Dave, Laura, Simon, you know, you guys have just been absolutely amazing. We highly value the collaboration between the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative and the NASA Develop program, and we definitely hope that we can continue it into the future. So thank you very much.
Well, Sean did such a great job, and I almost cut him off a little short there by clapping after his thank you, but it looks like we've got a little time for questions and answers, and certainly the slides will be available on our website next week sometime, I think, and maybe we can figure out a way to have some follow-up with Sean. And to me, the real value here is that, number one, you can go out and talk about how this problem has expanded over the years from this information. Perhaps more importantly, know where the higher risk areas are and whatever preventative steps might be possible could be taken. We know how difficult it is to kill them in place, and I don't know, we'll probably learn in the panel, steps that can be taken to reduce their expansion. So that's what I hope is a take-home here. So open it for questions at this point.
John, it was really kind of eye-opening to see the map and see that there's quite a few Phragmites on my part of Lake Michigan. Is there any way that you could send each of the cities more of the past history and then the future slides that are blowing up like several of those were for some of the individual cities?
Absolutely, I'd be more than happy to do that. I will collaborate with Dave and Laura, and we'll make sure that all the cities are able to get that information.
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, I was wondering, have you any collaborations with some of the natural resource, either agencies or organizations? Like I'm thinking Chicago Wilderness, right? It's a giant collaboration of 200 organizations working to protect the ecosystems around Chicago, to have this data, just as Dave said, because if you could anticipate where it's going next, I think it could be an incredibly valuable tool. But have you had any connections with any of those organizations, or would that be helpful?
That's a great question. So the quick answer is no, but I will say that we did have a very beneficial collaboration, and I do want to make a plug as well to the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative, which I know some of you in this room are quite familiar with. And if you're not familiar with, then I highly recommend that you go on their website and start digging around, because resources for, probably every mayor in this room or representative of each municipality, a wonderful resource in terms of what is Phragmites and how to handle to eradicate it. And also, just citizen scientists are actually using this as a portal to start, putting out new known locations of Phragmites, which is, obviously of benefit to your community. But to the short answer is no. We did this again in less than 2.5 months, and so we were able to contact a certain number of people, different science advisors, people that have been working on a similar project, similar methodology, not the same but similar. So we really reached out to those folk. We would love to expand it to be able to, because really what we do at Develop, we're applied sciences. We're trying to work directly with people that can benefit this data and the science. So everything we're trying to do, we're doing for you. And if you have a list of these people, I'd love to get a hold of it, and so we can have that conversation started.
Yeah, NASA has kind of become our Space Force or our Air Force, our eye in the sky for things happening. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That was very interesting. So Phragmites has been a question on, and I agree with your conclusions in general, but there's always a lot of questions about fluctuating water levels and how that influences the spread and control of Phragmites. And so I wondered, now that you said that you've only done this for 2.5 months, so this might not be a fair question, but did you look at, we hit some record lows in the Great Lakes, and then we had quite a rebound. Did you see any change as a result of water level fluctuations in Phragmites?
That's a great, wonderful question, Commissioner. Thank you for that. And so, yes, we did read about it in the literature. We didn't have time to cover it. That was one of the things we wanted to go going forward. That's definitely a huge driver in terms of fluctuating lake levels, in terms of Phragmites spreading or not spreading. So that's definitely something in iterative models going forward. We were just limited with time because everything we're doing are these 2.5 months. And honestly, not everybody there is working full time. So we're kind of stretched with the human capital. But absolutely, I think that's a great point. And any comprehensive model should be incorporating lake levels into that. So it's a very good point. Thank you for that.
Maybe we can twist Sean's and NASA's arm to do a phase 2 of this. It appears there is some real interest in it.
I just want to say this out loud, but the Great Lakes Adaptive Management Committee that serves our board of controls, we don't have NASA at the table, and this seems like this would be a really great connection. These are a lot of questions that we're working with NOAA, Environment Canada, climate change, and other agencies. Thanks.
Nicola, have a question?
Yeah, so I'm sitting beside Councillor Tovey. You nearly gave him a heart attack when that slide came up. And the question is, why Mississauga? Not near agriculture, pretty much developed already, no new roads. Why did Mississauga look quite so bad?
It's a great question. So again, a lot of the model is based on known presence locations. So if I went back and dug around in the data, it might be because maybe you have a lot of citizen scientists out there collecting a higher number of known presence locations than maybe surrounding areas. So it's going to maybe bias the model more to your area. That could be something I could look into. I'm sorry to put the fear of death into you. Here's a good question for you. I mean, is Phragmites a concern in your area? I mean, is it something that you've been having a conversation about already?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation, by the way. It's absolutely fantastic. And thanks, Dave, for organizing all these great partnerships. We have the Credit Valley Conservation Authority, and we have monitoring gauges in all of our streams, all of our rivers, all of our water courses. And we have it's a great group, and we have a lot of really, really good scientists that work at the Credit Valley Conservation Authority, and they do extensive monitoring of everything. So it wouldn't surprise me that they know exactly where all the Phragmites is.
I think it's wonderful that you're taking such a proactive, aggressive stance on identifying where it is, because if you don't know where it is, you can't do anything about it. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I just sent them an email to tell them to double down on everything we're doing.
Was there a question over here, Kendall? Did you have a question? Okay, here comes the mic.
Thank you. Good morning. So I have two questions. You said that the cost of managing Phragmites right now is approximately $5 billion. Is that just for the Great Lakes, or is that for the entire United States?
That's just in the Great Lakes up to this point.
Okay, and what is the projected cost based on your forecasting for 2020 if things don't change?
That is a great question. We did not do a cost-benefit analysis, so I do not know what that cost will be going forward. We do have an amazing panel coming up after me that probably are much more educated on that than I. So if you wanted to save that question, they might be better posed to address that.
Okay, I said two, but lastly, using the modeling, are you all expecting to kind of play with management and management or policies and seeing what happens with Phragmites based on if there's development here and not here? Are you all planning to use it in that way to kind of help people make better decisions with their zoning and things like that?
That could definitely be incorporated. So again, what we were doing with especially with the land change modeling was specifically just if the current rates of change as they've been from the mid-'80s until present, if those maintain in the same trends, then that's how we were modeling out to 2020. And from that, we were driving proximity, so basically distance from agricultural areas, distance from developed areas as kind of those proxies. Definitely, we could be incorporating more into more of the policy side, which we didn't get into, again, just because due to the time constraints. But I think that would definitely add a lot of value, and you could probably get potentially different results. And I think that's a great idea because maybe a lot of you have aggressive management strategies in place, which I'm not aware of, and this could definitely influence the model. So, but no, we did not address that in this project.
Okay, I think we're running a little short. No, we're not running short on time. We're right on time, but those were excellent questions. Let's give a big round of applause for Sean.